Imagine sitting across from your doctor, not in a cold, sterile room, but in a warm kitchen over a cup of tea, and hearing something that instantly makes you lean forward. Something like, the most dangerous diseases in the world don't actually hurt, and you'd probably blink for a second. Maybe tilt your head a little, because that's not what we're taught to believe. We grow up thinking danger means pain. Pain means a problem. A hammer hits your thumb and you know right away something is wrong. A sprained ankle hurts, so you rest. Tooth infection screams so loudly that you finally go to the dentist. But what about the diseases that stay quiet? It's the ones that gently slide into your life without fanfare, without dramatic music, without warning signs. Those are the ones I want to talk to you about today, because they're the silent problems most likely to catch you off guard. And trust me, these conditions are the reason so many people say I felt perfectly fine, until the day everything changed. If you're re-wondering how something so serious could hide for 10 or 20 years without making a sound, well, grab that tea, because that's exactly the mystery. I want to unravel with you slowly, clearly, and in a way that truly sticks. Let's start with high blood pressure, the classic silent trickster. You might think a pressure problem in your arteries would feel dramatic: pounding headaches, dizziness, racing pulse, but here's the strange truth. Most people can walk around with dangerously high blood pressure for a decade or more and feel almost nothing. Absolutely nothing. Isn't that wild? Imagine a garden hose with too much pressure in it, swelling, stretching, fighting to contain the water, yet doing it all silently while you water the flowers. That's your circulatory system. It manages the extra pressure with heroic effort, and you don't know what's happening until something gives up. It might be your heart, it might be your brain, it might be your kidneys, organs that worked so loyally for decades suddenly saying, enough. And still, so many people only discover their pressure problem by accident. A routine checkup, a pharmacy machine, a hospital visit for something unrelated. You'd be shocked by how many people tell me, but doctor, I felt fine. And I always smile with a little sadness, because that's exactly the point. You felt fine, till you didn't. Now let us take something even more frightening, because it is even more subtle. Type 2 diabetes. I want you to picture a timeline, not a scary medical chart, just a simple line in your mind. At the far left, normal life. At the far right, someone is diagnosed with diabetes. And here's the part no one talks about, the slow, invisible 14 to 20 years in between. Yes, you heard that right. Diabetes isn't something that suddenly appears. It builds quietly while the body works overtime to protect you. Imagine your bloodstream like a peaceful river, and sugar entering it like little boats floating along. Normally, there should only be 1 teaspoon of sugar in your entire bloodstream, just 1. But the average person consumes far more than that every single day. So you might wonder, if we eat so much sugar, why doesn't the bloodstream overflow? Why isn't everyone walking around with high blood sugar all the time? And the answer is simple and heartbreaking at the same time: insulin. Insulin is like a hardworking vacuum cleaner, running around, sucking up every bit of sugar it can find, and storing it away in your belly, your liver, and your organs. It works for years without complaining. It works until it's exhausted. It works until the vacuum bag is full and the machine overheats. And only then, only when the body can't compensate anymore, do symptoms appear. Isn't it stunning that the warning signs come so late? For years, your only symptom might be a growing belly, or fatigue you blame on age, or cravings you think are just habits. Meanwhile, the real story is unfolding behind the scenes, in total silence. Let's talk about the liver for a moment, because this organ might be the toughest, most forgiving worker in your entire body. If the liver were a person, it would be that family member who never complains, never asks for help, and keeps cleaning up everyone else's mess even when it's exhausted. Scientists have shown that the liver can lose up to 75% of its function before you notice anything. 75%. That means you could be walking around with serious liver damage while feeling perfectly normal. Why? Because the liver doesn't send early pain signals. It just adapts, it regenerates, tries again. And eventually, when it can't keep up anymore, it shows signs. But by then, the damage is already advanced. Many people say, "But doctor, I don't drink. How could I have liver issues?" And then I gently remind them that sugar hurts the liver even more than alcohol. Fructose especially, processed foods, hidden sugars, and of course, insulin resistance, the invisible enemy that quietly forces the liver to store fat many years before symptoms appear. I find it fascinating how the body tries to protect you right up until the very last moment. Speaking of organs that love to work silently and without applause, we need to talk about the kidneys. These small bean-shaped organs are absolute warriors. They filter your blood non-stop, nearly 180 liters a day, and they don't complain even when overloaded. You can live with just one kidney. Actually, you can function normally with a tiny fraction of one kidney. That's why kidney disease is often discovered horribly late, sometimes when 90% of kidney function is already gone. Can you imagine that? 90%? The body compensates so well for so long that the warning bells only ring when it's almost too late. Someone might say, but I never had pain. And I always explain that kidney disease isn't the kind of problem that hurts early. It's the kind that builds quietly, hidden in the shadows. Edema, high blood pressure, back discomfort, nighttime urination. These signs usually appear when the kidneys are already struggling dramatically. This is why early prevention matters so much more than waiting for symptoms. Waiting for symptoms is like waiting for the fire alarm to ring when the house is already burning. Now let's shift to something even more profound. Atherosclerosis. Plaque in the arteries. It's the kind of plaque that slowly narrows the path your blood travels through. You might think clogged arteries would create some kind of early discomfort, maybe chest pressure or shortness of breath. But no. Most people feel perfectly fine until the arteries are 70% blocked. 70. And even then, the body finds ways to create little detours, new blood vessels, alternative pathways. Isn't it incredible how the body tries to keep us alive even while we ignore it? That's why so many people say, but doctor, how could I have I feel normal. Because normal doesn't mean healthy. Normal means silent. Silence can be dangerous. Let's touch briefly on something even scarier. Colon cancer. Many people reach stage 4 without any symptoms. Just think about that for a moment. Cancer spreading quietly, silently, with no warning, while the person continues to live life assuming everything is fine. I've seen people who discovered it by accident, a scan for something unrelated, a test they took only because a friend insisted. No pain, no bleeding, no discomfort, nothing. Imagine how many lives could be saved if people understood that waiting for symptoms is simply not enough. Here is the strangest part of all. Our healthcare system often focuses on removing symptoms rather than addressing root causes. You have high blood pressure? Here's a pill to lower it. You have stomach pain? Here's something to numb it. You have inflammation? Take something to mask it. But do we ask where the problem comes from? Why it started? What the body is trying to say? Not often enough. Not sometimes. Medications designed to reduce symptoms actually silence the warning signs your body desperately needs you to notice. So people feel better temporarily, but the underlying problem continues to grow quietly under the surface. Let's talk about the small signals we often ignore because we think they re-normal. Normal fatigue, normal stiffness, normal belly fat, normal sugar cravings, waking up at night to urinate, feeling heavy after meals, feeling tired in the afternoon, losing energy you once had. The truth is, none of these things are normal. They are common, but they are not normal. And because everyone around us experiences the same issues, we start thinking, well, this is age. But is it age? Or is it a warning? Because the body whispers before it screams. And if you learn to listen to the whispers, you can change everything before it's too late. Now, let us take a moment to understand the deeper mechanism behind these silent diseases, the idea of compensation. The body compensates for a very long time before breaking down. Think about a bridge carrying more and more weight every year. At first, it holds up just fine. Then tiny cracks appear, but nothing dramatic. The structure keeps adapting, redistributing weight, supporting the load. And then one day, without warning, the whole thing collapses. Was it sudden? Not at all. The damage was happening for years. But the collapse was the first visible sign. That's how the body works. Compensation keeps you alive. Compensation hides the problems. Compensation delays symptoms for as long as possible. But once compensation fails, the signs appear quickly and dramatically. Time for a vivid example: type 2 diabetes. Remember how insulin acts like a vacuum cleaner? Let us dive deeper into that because it's one of the clearest metaphors you'll ever hear. Picture your pancreas as a worker in a factory. Every time you eat sugar, bells ring, and the worker rushes over to clean up the mess. At first, it's easy. The worker is young, energetic, eager to help. He cleans up the sugar and stores it away as fat in your belly, your liver, your organs. The more sugar you eat, the harder he works. When he gets tired, your body calls in reinforcements. It sends more insulin. It increases production. It pushes the worker harder and harder. For 15 to 20 years, this goes on. The poor worker is sweating. He's tired. He's overwhelmed. And one day he drops the broom. He says, "I can't do this anymore." That moment is what we call insulin resistance. Sugar is no longer absorbed quickly. It stays in the bloodstream. The damage accelerates, and symptoms finally appear. But by the time the worker collapses, the problem is not new. It's old. Let's pause for a moment here because I know some viewers might be thinking, "But doctor, if all these things happen silently, what can I possibly do about it?" And that's the beauty of this conversation. The moment you understand how the body compensates, the moment you realize symptoms are not early warnings but late signals, you unlock the door to prevention. Real prevention. Not the hope for the best kind, but the practical, actionable kind that can truly transform your life. And don't worry, we'll get to the 4 habits that can help with that. But before we do, let's touch on something surprisingly simple that influences almost every chronic disease. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is not just a vitamin. It functions like a hormone, a messenger, a coordinator. And most people are deficient without knowing it. Studies from multiple countries show that low vitamin D is associated with worse outcomes in cardiovascular health, immune health, hormonal balance, and even mood. Isn't it funny how something so simple can affect so many systems? When vitamin D is low, insulin works harder. Blood pressure rises, the immune weakens, inflammation increases. And yet, the symptoms of low vitamin D are vague: fatigue, low mood, weakness, sleep issues, muscle aches. All things people blame on age, stress, or weather. And the truth is, vitamin D also helps regulate nitric oxide, a molecule that relaxes blood vessels. When nitric oxide is low, blood pressure increases. So sometimes, high blood pressure isn't just about stress or salt. It's simply about low vitamin D. Have you ever noticed how good you feel after spending time in the sun? That's not just warmth, that's biology. Before we transition into the habits, let me ask you a question. If you knew you could prevent around 80% of chronic diseases with simple lifestyle practices, would you want to know what they are? Would you want to try them? Would you want to experiment with a few small changes that could shift everything in your body, your energy, your sleep, your weight, your mood? Most people say yes, and maybe that's why you're still here, listening. And if you're still here, that tells me you're someone who's ready to take control in a calm, confident, informed way. So let me guide you gently into the first habit: exercise. But not exercise the way most people describe it. Not go run 6 miles or hit the gym for an hour. No. What I want you to imagine is simply walking after a meal. Just a walk. 10 minutes. 15 minutes. Something anyone can do. Why after a meal? Because that's when your body is trying to deal with sugar. And walking is one of the fastest ways to help your muscles absorb it naturally, reducing the workload on insulin. Studies show that even a short walk after eating significantly lowers blood sugar. Isn't that empowering? Imagine eating dinner and then simply strolling around the neighborhood, helping your body process everything more gently. It's so simple it almost feels too easy, and that's why it works. Now let me introduce something fascinating, something you might not have heard before: hypoxia training. Doesn't the word sound intense? But don't worry, we are not talking about extreme mountain climbing here. Hypoxia simply means mild, controlled exposure to lower oxygen levels, the kind you might experience in higher altitudes. Athletes use this technique all the time to improve performance, but the benefits for everyday people are even more interesting. Hypoxia training can stimulate blood flow, improve oxygen delivery to tissues, support mitochondrial function, and help the body repair areas that have been deprived of proper oxygen for years. And when you combine mild hypoxia with normal exercise, even something as simple as walking, you amplify the effects. More oxygen reaches deep tissues that have been starved, inflammation decreases, healing improves. Imagine your organs breathing more freely, your muscles waking up, your cells renewing themselves. Isn't it beautiful how the body responds when given the right environment? This is a good moment to pause, take a slow breath, and recognize something important. You are not powerless. You're not at the mercy of silent diseases. You're not waiting helplessly for symptoms to appear. You're learning to read your body earlier, understand it deeper, and support it smarter. And honestly, I'm glad you're here. Conversations like this can change lives, and if you're finding value so far, you might enjoy sticking around for future videos too. You ever feel like subscribing or sharing the video with someone who needs it? Do it whenever it feels right, no pressure. So let's pick up right where we left off, because the next habit is one of the most powerful, most misunderstood, and most transformative tools you can use to prevent or even reverse these silent diseases. Lowering your carbs and introducing intermittent fasting into your life. And I want you to imagine this not as a strict diet or some intimidating regime, but as a gentle shift in rhythm, like adjusting the tempo of a song so everything feels smoother. Have you ever noticed how your body feels lighter when you're not constantly eating throughout the day? There's a reason for that. Every time you eat, insulin rises. And every time insulin rises, the body switches into storage mode, not repair mode. The moment you give your body a break, not a punishment, not starvation, just a break, everything inside you begins to calm down. Inflammation drops. The digestive system relaxes. The pancreas breathes a sigh of relief. Isn't it intriguing how the simple act of not eating all the time can change so much inside you? Let's make this visual. Imagine your body is a busy office. Every time you snack or take a sip of something with calories, the phone rings. Insulin has to answer. Sugar has to be processed. Files have to be moved. Employees are rushing. Nobody has time to clean the office or organize anything. Now imagine a few hours with no calls. Silence. Suddenly there's space, there's time. People tidy up, papers get filed. By the end of the shift, the office looks completely different. That's what fasting does for your cells. It gives them space to clean. This is why fasting is linked with improvements in blood sugar, blood pressure, liver health, kidney function, inflammation levels, and even longevity. And you don't need extreme fasting windows. You don't need 20-hour fasts. It's just 2 meals a day, or one bigger meal if that fits your lifestyle. You stop eating constantly, you let the insulin rest. And suddenly, the compensation we talked about earlier, the silent, stressful, exhausting compensation, starts to reverse. But here's where people often misunderstand something. They worry fasting will make them tired, or weak, or dizzy. And sure, the first couple of days can feel strange as your body switches from burning sugar to burning fat. But once the transition happens, something amazing kicks in. Clarity, lightness, stable energy, no afternoon crashes. Imagine waking up in the morning and feeling like your brain is sharper than it has been in years. Isn't that something worth exploring? And yes, there are studies, simple, reassuring ones, showing that intermittent fasting helps improve insulin sensitivity, reduce belly fat, and even lower the risk of type 2 diabetes. But what I love most is the way people describe the change. They often say, "I feel like myself again," and I think that's beautiful. Now let's ease into the third habit, sleep. Not just sleep in general, but an extra 30 to 60 minutes of it. Because sleep is not passive rest. Sleep is active repair. And the frustrating part is that most people underestimate what sleep can do because they've normalized bad sleep. Have you ever had a night where you slept deeply and woke up with that feeling of, oh, that's what rest is supposed to feel like? Imagine experiencing that regularly. Imagine your blood pressure improving just because your nervous system finally had enough time to relax. Imagine inflammation dropping because your body finally had the window to clean out the cellular debris it couldn't handle during the day. Isn't it funny how people will change their diet, buy supplements, start exercising, but still neglect the one thing that heals everything? Sleep is like the night team in that office we talked about earlier. During the day, emails are flying, the phones are ringing, everyone is busy. But at night, the night crew comes in anonymously. They vacuum, they reorganize, they clear the trash, they restock the shelves, they fix what was broken. The next day, the office works better. Without that night team, everything collapses. That's your body. That's your brain. Cells rebuild. Hormones reset. blood pressure drops, blood sugar stabilizes. The liver detoxifies, the kidneys filter, and the heart gets a moment to breathe. Isn't that incredible? The best part is that the habits we discussed earlier, exercising gently after meals, using mild hypoxia techniques, lowering carbs, fasting, all make sleep better by default. They're like allies holding hands. But let me make this even more relatable. Think of the last time you were really sleep deprived. Maybe you were irritable, craving sugar, lacking focus, feeling heavier. Compare that to how you feel after a full, peaceful night of rest. The difference is like night and day, right? Even your face changes. Your eyes look brighter. Your skin looks calmer. And science confirms it. People who sleep well see improvements in metabolic health, immune strength, heart function, and emotional balance. So when I tell you an extra half hour or hour can change everything, I mean it literally. Now let's transition into something beautifully simple. Nature. Being outside, sunlight, fresh air, trees. You might think this sounds too soft to have a real effect on silent diseases. But stay with me for a second. More than half of the sun's rays are infrared. These rays sink deep into your tissues, promoting healing, relaxing blood vessels, improving lymph flow, and stimulating natural melatonin production. And melatonin is not just a sleep hormone, it's also a powerful antioxidant. Isn't it incredible that something as gentle as sunlight can lower inflammation and support cardiovascular health? And think about nature itself. When you walk through trees, when you breathe fresh air, when you hear birds or feel the wind on your skin, your nervous system shifts gears. Stress hormones drop. Blood pressure decreases. Your mind clears. You feel grounded, centered, more connected to yourself. Likewise, studies show that people who spend time outdoors regularly have lower rates of depression, anxiety, and chronic disease. But you don't need a forest. You don't need a mountain. You just need 10 minutes outside, a neighborhood walk, a visit to the park, sunlight in the morning. Isn't that doable? And the best part, being outside pulls you out of the cycle of screens, indoor air, and constant noise. It's like stepping out of a crowded room into a quiet garden where your body finally exhales. Now let's tie all 4 habits together because this is where the real magic happens. Walking after meals lowers blood sugar. Hypoxia training improves oxygen utilization. Lowering carbs and fasting reduces insulin, inflammation, and organ stress. More sleep accelerates repair. Time in nature calms your nervous system and boosts melatonin. And when you combine them, the effects multiply. It's like taking 4 small keys and unlocking 4 different doors that all lead to the same treasure: better health, early prevention, and a body that finally stops whispering warnings. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a person who has silently built up high blood pressure, insulin resistance, and early fatty liver. They feel normal. They have a belly, some fatigue, some cravings, nothing dramatic. Now imagine they start implementing these 4 habits gently. They walk after dinner. They reduce their carbs. They eat 2 meals instead of 5. They sleep an hour earlier. They take a morning walk outside. What starts to happen? Within days, inflammation drops. Within weeks, insulin becomes more efficient. Within months, the liver reduces fat. Blood pressure stabilizes. The kidneys get relief. Hormones balance. And remember, all of this is happening before symptoms ever appeared. Isn't that empowering? Isn't that the definition of real prevention? And this brings us to something I love sharing. The body wants to heal. It is always trying to heal. Even when diseases are silent, the body is not passive. It's fighting, compensating, adjusting, protecting. What these habits do is simple. They give your body the environment it needs to do what it already knows how to do. Healing is its nature. Regeneration is its design. All you're doing is stepping out of the way. A moment and breathe that in. Because for so many people, modern life feels overwhelming. There are so many rules, so many diets, so many voices saying do this or do that. But at the end of the day, real health, deep health, comes from simple rhythms. Eat less often, move gently, sleep enough, go outside, support your body, listen before it screams. Trust that silence doesn't always mean safety. Now, I want to give you one more mental image before we wrap up. Imagine your health as a house. Some houses collapse suddenly because they ignored a small crack for too long. Other houses stand strong for decades because someone cared for them. They fixed things early. They noticed tiny signs. They cleaned regularly. They treated the house with respect. Your body is that house. These habits, they're the maintenance plan. And you deserve a house that lasts. And if this conversation helped you in any way, if you feel calmer, clearer, more informed, feel free to share it with someone you care about. Most people have no idea that disease can be this silent. Sometimes a little knowledge is the difference between catching something early and discovering it too late. And if you want to keep learning, you're always welcome here. It's no pressure, no lectures, just honest, warm conversations about how to take care of the body you live in. Now, before we end, there's one more step. All of these habits can change your life, but there's a deeper level of understanding that makes everything work even faster. It's the synergy between intermittent fasting and a low-carb approach, how they work together, how they support your hormones, how they rebuild insulin sensitivity, how they unlock the healing potential of your cells. And the best way to understand that connection is to watch the next video I've prepared for you, where I break down exactly how fasting helps you regenerate your health from the inside out, gently, naturally, and powerfully. But for now, just take a moment to appreciate yourself. You took the time to listen, you learned something new, and that alone puts you miles ahead of where most people start. Whenever you're ready, we can keep going. Just let me know what you'd like next.